I'm really nervous, just gonna be honest. So I'm just gonna do me and hope for the best, right? So first, I would like to begin by sharing how incredibly impactful this nomination has been for me personally and professionally. I am so incredibly honored to accept it. My first personal reflection was, how can I, as a first-gen college student that was so lost for so long, child of immigrants, growing up in a lower social class background, my younger self would be in disbelief, right, of getting this distinction. My present self is still catching up to this distinction. So my professional reflection is more about feeling so privileged to have made a career out of training and supervision. And that has been so important to me. Initially, when I was developing, I had some trouble finding mentors. And then when I found counseling psychology, that changed everything. So today I'm a clinical psychologist by training and I'm a counseling psychologist by life. So first I want to say thank you first and foremost to Aisha Chipsy, who nominated me for S&P Fellowship. Thank you for seeing me and what I had to offer to us, this field, CCTC, all the things we did together. Thank you to Natasha Maynard Pemba, to Julia Phillips and Annalise Singh, who were supporting me through this process as well, writing letters, answering tons of questions. All four of you amazing humans, I'm so grateful that you're in my life. And I continue to be in awe of your passion, your authenticity, and your personhood that you bring to everything that we do together and that you do in your life. So one of my beliefs right now in my life at 53 years of age is that authenticity is the road to personal freedom. I have these two photos of myself. The person on the left is a bit of an imposter created by gender expectations, including my very genuine desire of my mother for me to be very feminine. As a person who identifies as a more masculine woman in the world, I feel like the little butch girl on the right is probably a little more descriptive of me. So part of what I want to weave into the story I'm going to share with you today is how authenticity has been central to my life and the lessons I've learned at this point, being a psychologist and being a human being on the planet. I think that little smile, you can't see it as well, but I think she was pretty happy up there not wearing a tutu. So lesson one. Lesson one is that we are standing on so many shoulders. I'm very aware that I have been able to accomplish what I've been able to accomplish was not earned by myself. Even the darkest and most excruciating moments of my journey, I try to stay connected to the energy of just hardworking, amazing ancestors that we have among us. Specifically, I think about how many Latinx people, queer folk, queer kin, women, gender expansive people, racial ethnic minorities, all enduring so much pain, unable to be their authentic selves, right? So again, it's road to personal freedom. They paved the way for me and for us to be able to be here. And so I pause to acknowledge them. In particular, I pause to acknowledge them when I can be my full self as I am today. Lesson two, others may see your greatness before you. There's a poem that my maternal grandmother wrote for me when I was about age 3. It's in Spanish. I will translate to English. I will not read both for sake of time. But she basically in this poem talks about what she saw in my eyes, in my look, in my gaze. So the title is A Carmencita. She says, there are looks, gazes that have with them a deep hiding. It is a deep feeling, hidden feelings. They are looks that tell of experiences of the past, the suffering of other races, or the feelings of other beings. They are looks that speak of faraway, distant worlds, of hidden corners and deep waters. They are silent looks, they are calm looks. They are looks that open up infinite questions. I mourn these looks as I feel they carry with them the stigma of race, the unknown future. Your look, my granddaughter, belongs to this group, and that is why I lament that you suffer also. So you can see why it's such a deep emotional poem of somebody so important in my life that she wrote when I was 3. So she saw something in me, and now I understand that as best I can, right? As seeing her seeing that part of me that would serve others. So these are a couple photos of her to share with you. The first one is her in Cuba, circa 1942. Her name was Sarah. She was my teacher. She taught me how to drive. She taught me how to type on a typewriter. like 1983, 1984. She was there when I was experiencing pretty adverse childhood conditions, and okay, many of which shaped me and my future. Unfortunately, she tragically passed away, which changed the whole trajectory of my life when I was 16 and a half, and that was the last photo I was able to take with her. Lesson 3. Relationships and connection can help you get where you need, even if you're not aware. So how did I find my way to counseling psychology if I was in a clinical psychology doctoral program and make it a central part of my career? Well, first, the lack of diversity in clinical psychology that was happening in the early 90s was extensive. And at the same time where I did practicum, it was just not a good fit. I was poorly mentored into a program. I didn't even know counseling psychology existed when I chose my clinical psychology program. And so 1993, my first year in grad school, simultaneously coming out and learning the impact of how different it would be to be in a predominantly white environment versus Miami, where I grew up, which was a majority minority experience. Just an hour south made a big difference. And so in 1997, I moved to Texas for my internship at Texas Women's University. And that's where I found counseling psychology through Roberta Nutt. And I know many of you know Dr. Nutt, and she invited me to learn about Division 17, and she included me in this conference in 1998. I was just finishing my internship, I was a postdoc, and she invited me to the Michigan SAW conference that I think some of you attended as well, for the section for the advancement of women of Division 17. And that changed my whole career. I finally was around people who were speaking the topics in a language I valued and understood. And it just felt like, wow, this is incredible. Like this was like all my years of grad school looking for conversations like this. So Dr. Nutt lifted me up, she saw me, and I am forever grateful for that. And she sent me a quick email the day that it was announced to the listserv that said, I'm sorry I can't be there, but congratulations. So lesson 4, you never know where you're gonna end up in life. These are 2 quick pictures. The one on the left, my maternal grandmother and maternal grandfather in Cuba around 1950. And the picture on the right is my parents marrying in New Jersey, where I was born, post their immigration. Social class, as we know, can drastically change due to external forces. In this case, it was my family becoming refugees. The picture on the left, this is a very important point of my talk, and it's important to me as a slide, is the picture on the left, the second man, I know it's hard to see, the second man, it's just more of the point, right? The second man from the left is my maternal great-grandfather, who I never knew. He was affluent in Cuba. He left Spain to go to Cuba to build businesses. That was the day he opened a bank, right? So my parents were exiles. They came from Cuba in the 1960s after the Castro Revolution. The photo on the right is when I was in high school, and we lived in the worst conditions that I've had to live in during those years, where I struggled with a lot of shame around where I lived, around not having my friends come, around going to the grocery store with my grandmother with food stamps. That is not like a card like today to decrease shame, but it was paper bills that were different colors, and everybody was very aware of what you were doing. So some context into my life around high school is that I was not really into academics, as you know, I graduated in the top 60% of my high school class. My strengths was that I was an athlete and I was a service club leader. I received 2 athletic scholarships, one for basketball, one for softball. I wanted to live in a dorm. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to do all those things so badly. Yet my family was not able to guide me, and I stayed at home to take care of my paternal grandmother, different grandmother than this one. For example, my father was asking me, what are you going to do after high school? And I was driving forklift in warehouse. Very different life than obviously I've had now. I always wonder what my grandmother would have said about the scholarships and about going away to college. So the primary point of this for me is a juxtaposition of social class and income. And it's striking to me personally, of course, to have these pictures next to each other, which again show like we never ever know where we're going to end up. And I certainly didn't think I'd live in Texas for a quarter century like I have, 26 years now. I thought I was going to go back to the East Coast real fast. And then the last photos are my family, my wife, Ellen, who's also a counseling psychologist, and she's here. My kids, Kayla and Sam, who we're so incredibly proud of, and the adult lives they've created and they're having in their lives. I love you all so much. Thank you for loving me. And I'm glad you could be here today in this special moment for me. So I feel purposeful. I feel like I've had a purposeful career. I now have a garage in my house. For me, that was a signal, a sign of success. And I always joke like with my interns, I'm like, well, I have a garage now, you know, like for most people, it may not be a big thing, but the little things to some are big things to others, you know? Lesson 5, you never know what impact you can make. So my life at Texas Women's was 26 years. I just left in May after all that time and having a new job, a new institution, trying new things. I got there when I was 27, I'm 53, so it's been a few minutes. So I wanted to challenge myself and really live the truth of what I preach all the time, which is we have to get out of our comfort zones. And so these are just a few photos of different people that I've had the fortune to work with, and TW will always be one of the loves of my life. I got to be part of that wonderful internship program and maintain it and lead it for 25 or 35 years. The program unfortunately closed in 2021. And I'm grateful to the 68 interns and 104 graduate students I had the privilege to work with. Lesson 6, sometimes it takes a while to catch up to how others see us. We've all experienced being uncomfortable, people being uncomfortable when they're giving compliments. We've also likely experienced being more critical of ourselves than we would be of others. Frequently, I found myself over the years mentoring interns, clients, friends, that sometimes it really just kind of takes a minute to catch up to how other people see us. And it's incongruent, I think, for a period of time. And at least I found that in a lot of the students I mentored over the years. And that might not be true for all. But my approach is now to try to teach the more both and of ourselves, the fact that we do have our gifts and we have our shadow sides, and we all have them, and it is what it is. So we can embrace our greatness earlier along with our imperfections without consistently minimizing or denying our gifts and talents. One huge example of this in my life, of this concept and what I named this talk of sometimes it takes a while to catch up to how other people see us, is my work with ACTA. And one of the reasons I'm up here is because of my work with ACTA, which is a national training organization for internships in college mental health. And I started my relationship with ACTA as a recipient of the Diversity Mentorship Scholarship in 2000. And then I became a training director in 2009. Fast forward 2 decades, and I ended my presidency in 2021. And I said goodbye to ACTA last year in 2022. So I was in complete disbelief when somebody said, you could be president of ACTA, so you're like, let's just slow our roll right there. We're not going to do that. Let's calm down with all your excitement. That is overwhelming for me to think of myself. And that's a big part of why we need role models who resemble who we are and who represent who we are. After 40 years, ACTA had not had a racial ethnic minority president. So my friend and colleague, Natasha Maynard Pemba, she's a training director at UF in Florida. She's an SEP Fellow 2021, and she's also the first Black president of ACTA. We were together when we made the decision to run, when others were like, you all should do this. Oh my gosh. Then finally we're like, who's gonna go first? She went first. In 2015, she was elected the first Black president of ACTA. In 2017, I was elected the first Latinx president of ACTA, and that's a big pride in my life. So in closing, we must keep paving the way for others by being authentically who we are. That is our main power. It is so powerful. Earlier in my career, I gave up my authenticity many times. It was a different time too, in terms of empowerment and the ability to feel and be empowered in spaces with others at times. And so I often had to shapeshift is what I talk about, making myself different to not stand out, not be a stereotypical, like what other people might see. Like I got feedback one time, I was like, well, you just have such big feelings, kind of thing. Yes, I do, so I just had to I didn't want to fit the stereotype. I'm like a big, overly talkative, loud Latina, which I may or may not be anyway, but I had to shapeshift myself in some ways to get into the rooms where decisions were made and power was enacted, to have a different voice, to bring in different narratives that were not shared there. So now, knowing that I am the shoulders for some students and others, I find it imperative to live by a power with model. And for me, that means using my gained power to lift others up into spaces where they can thrive. As a leader, it's important as you move up into your power, greater social power, professional power, however that is, but that you lift others too. Toni Morrison says it wonderfully in this quote. She says, I tell my students, when you get these jobs that you have been so brilliantly trained for, just remember that your real job is that if you are free, you need to free somebody else. And if you have power, then your job is to empower somebody else. This is not just a grab bag candy. I love that quote. So authenticity is feeling strong enough to be your full self, even when the world around you, right, tells you to be something different. So to all those first gen, there's going to be on YouTube, I'm sure, minority humans, queer, BIPOC, queer kin, people that feel unprepared, underprepared, not good enough. I am here to be one of those voices you will compile about your greatness, hopefully, until you can see it fully. My younger self would never believe this. So keep your chin up, your shoulders back, and hashtag just do you. You are the best at it. And as a reminder, abuelas, grandmothers have some wisdom. I didn't understand the depth of that poem when I first read it decades ago. And now I understand my grandmother saw me and part of who I was to become in the world. So thank you for listening to me and for supporting me.